Every time I do one of these finishes that you're going to see in this video, I break the internet and go viral, but it's not always for the best reasons. People lose their minds when it comes to primitive finishes, and that is something that I specialize in, and that is something that just drives the internet absolutely crazy, saying that it's ugly and they have no idea why I can take a perfectly good piece of furniture and ruin it. But y'all, it takes a lot of work going from something that, looks like this. It's otherwise in good condition aside from like these stickers on the side of it. And there's like a broken drawer track on the bottom, but otherwise, like, it's in pretty good condition. To take this and to make it look like it's been sitting in a barn for like 50, 60 years and just getting rained on, people do not like that. But with this piece specifically, I really did want to showcase some of my new hardware on it. And one of the designs that I'm going to be showcasing on this is specifically made for apothecary style pieces. So I wanted to turn this into like a very old, primitive, rustic apothecary style cabinet. And in doing that, the first thing that needed to go was this very ugly bottom trim piece. The bevels on this unfortunately does date the piece, so I wanted to replace it with a piece of barnwood that I had, which would be more true to like the old apothecary style cabinet look. For those of you who are just seeing this and you might be new, or those of you who I just gained over the last week, which is about 3,000 of you, I started furniture refinishing in 2020 when I got very, very sick, and then developed my own hardware brand. And then now I'm getting back to focusing on designing hardware, and using all of my furniture flips to fund my what was a old venture, because I've had this company since 2020. It is now a restarting of a venture after a couple of years of taking time off and losing my passion after a company tried to unfortunately steal a lot of my proprietary information and profit off of it. And then I had a ton of issues with my manufacturers and people overseas stealing my designs, and just a whole bunch of crazy stuff went on. And unfortunately, I walked away from it for a couple of years, and now I'm back with it. I've posted a couple of videos in the last month, and it's crazy how social media takes off when you're actually putting effort into it. So not only is this project one of the major ones that's getting me back into designing my hardware, like I said, this is going to be a showcase piece. I'm also trying to get better about doing content and growing my social media and monetizing off of my content. And everything is going to go right back into designing and producing like Victorian inspired hardware pieces that is unlike anything else on the market. So if you stuck around because you're new and you want to see if you absolutely hate the end result, like many of you will, no worries, welcome anyways. I'd still appreciate the follow. That way you can follow along and see what my brand turns into over the next year. I have very, very high hopes for it. So getting back to the actual piece here, after I removed that bottom trim piece and then replaced it, I'm doing a scuff sand over everything and breaking my sander in the process, apparently. Which later I ended up going from a scuff sand to like mostly sanding everything down. As you can see on the drawer, the goal was to leave about like 20% of the old finish behind in patches. That way when I start painting over it and create these layers, it has a very, very unique layered old look to it. And this is my new baby puppy, Boda. He is the sweetest boy, and he is the absolute worst helper because he tries to eat everything. For those of you who want to get into furniture refinishing but feel like you don't have the space for it, I'm actually just out in my driveway. And for the most part, I hand paint everything inside. This entire piece was done outside because the lighting is better outside. But when it's cold out or raining out or whatever the case is, as long as it's not being sanded inside, I will just drag the piece inside, lay either cardboard or a tarp down, and just hand paint everything and sit in front of the TV. It's actually very, very peaceful. And most of the time, you really don't need to prep pieces to this extent, but this like weathered, sanded look is definitely going to play a big part in the base layer of like the look that I'm going for here. I was missing a drawer track on the bottom right hand side, so I found an old piece that was given to me, and it happened to be nearly the exact size that I needed. So I just had to add a tiny little piece of wood at the bottom, which I found next to me. I didn't even have to cut it. It was like the perfect size. And glued it down. That way it just added that additional like inch that I needed on the back there, and it worked perfectly. The next thing I did was take a combination of like powdered milk paints and a little bit of like a metallic decor paint just to try to get that perfect like almost brown black color that the trim piece that I replaced on the bottom was already painted. I wanted to match that just because I felt like the color was going to be perfect as the base layer over this entire piece. And then I started with a heavy dry brush and working my way up lighter and lighter and lighter to have more of the wood exposed the further that I got up. Almost giving this like this rustic ombre look. And then after it dried, I went through and wet sanded just to make it a little bit more patchy. And then I took a cream colored paint and used like a block method. You take anything that resembles a block and has a straight edge, you put paint on it, and then you just rub it across, and it creates this very like sporadic, patchy look, which is probably one of my favorite methods to do, honestly. You can also do it with a putty knife, but I've found that when you use a block, it turns out a lot better, and then you can just build different colors on that if you'd like. However, with this piece, after this step, I did seal it because I wanted to be able to see the true color of everything. When you use milk paints, they tend to dry a lot more like matte and light colored, and then when you seal them, the richness comes out. So after I sealed it, I did not have a regular wax stick, so I went and grabbed a candle. The purpose behind rubbing wax on pieces is to make sure that when you're painting over in those areas, the paint is actually not going to adhere. It's going to flake off. So after deciding where I wanted the paint not sticking, I went through and mixed up this like maroon colored brown because I wanted like rust on the edges, and this was going to be my base color of the rust. Here's what it looks like after this step is done. And you can see like the wood tones underneath, the charcoal, and then that white, and then now you have this rust tone that's over everything. So once that's dry, I lay it in the sun, and then I take my mister bottle with just a tiny little bit of bleach in it and spray it over it. Not only is the sun going to force a lot of the moisture out, and the milk paint, depending on the brand, will actually crack and start coming off, which will just add to the aged look. It also leaves this like bubbly look that you're going to see here in a second, which just makes it look like older and calcified. So here's after it was dry. I just went over with sandpaper and just knocked down some of the texture. But you can see up close here, see that like bubbling texture? That's all from just a little bit of bleach that was in the water and being in the direct sun. Now you don't have to seal it like I did in this step. I actually thought I was going to be done at this step, so I sealed it. And then I decided after that I wanted a fourth tone on this piece, just to give it a little bit more depth. I wasn't really happy with like the purpley undertones of like the rust color. Rust can be purple. However, rust for the most part has purples and reds, and depending on the type of metal, sometimes it can have like greens and blues. So after this was completely sealed, which was the second time that I've sealed this, I did go through and add a more genuine like orangey rust tone over top of the maroon, but not to cover it completely. You want to see some of that maroon edging below it so it looks like true rust. It kind of creates this like maroon banding around this new orangey rust tone. And I don't know what this applicator is. I bought this forever ago and all of my brushes were dirty, so I tried this and I actually really liked this. It makes like the dabbing portion of this look way better than if you were to use like a paintbrush and pounce. It doesn't have the same textured effect. This to me looked way more genuine to like a rust texture using this. I'm also using my mister bottle in places, not over the entire thing, but just watering out some of it to feather some of the edges out, and then dabbing off some of the like excess paint with paper towels. But this is a really good example where you can see the colors pretty well, where some of that purple is still showing. I'm not trying to cover every single portion of it. Also, y'all, make sure and pull out your drawers when you're doing this. Otherwise, if you paint around them, when you pull the drawers out, you're going to have this like very ugly naked band underneath. I try to rust out the piece where I feel like it would rust naturally. So under metal is a really good spot to do it, around the edges. Anywhere that it would drip further down from like either the edges or the holes. So you're going to see here on the side of it, I'm about ready to do some like rust that's in the middle of the drawer below the one that would be having the hole above it, if that makes sense. There we go, right there. Because realistically, if water was to sit around the hardware, it would be dripping directly underneath of that. And then this is my, what, third and final clear coat at this point. But you do want to make sure that the paint is sealed. I went overkill with this just because I actually wasn't sure where I was going with it. But this is my last and final clear coat, thank God. These knobs that I'm putting back on the top were the original ones that came with it. Usually I love these like faux tiny drawers and to do like label slots on those. However, I wanted to do like labeled stuff on the bottom of them, so I just kept the smaller knobs up top to make sure that the piece was balanced. This one here is the Hope design. This is one of my brand exclusives that I specifically designed, and it has a gorgeous little label slot, and I've made labeled brass tags, numbers 1 through 9, that come in a single pack, that work specifically with these and also by themselves, which you're going to see here. So I'm placing just some like rusted cut pulls that I also have on the website. However, these are not something that I've designed. And then you can take the label tags and put them above those, which just adds a whole bunch of like beautiful character. So they have nails with them. You can use them again with the Hope design, or you can use them by themselves. Also, y'all, anytime you are installing hardware with the screws on the front of it, make sure and always pre-drill your holes almost to the diameter of the screw before you insert the screws. It's going to eliminate any of the screws breaking off in the wood, which this piece is a very, very hard wood, and if those would have broken off in there, it would have been such a pain to try to drill those out. And here's those cute little brass label tags above these hardware pieces. These tags are genuine brass, and brass does patina over time. However, I didn't have the color that brass would have like turned as if it were like genuinely oxidized. So I just took a little bit more of this rust color and dabbed it around it. And then I took a clear coat spray paint in matte, since the rest of the clear coat that I put on it was matte. I took a spray matte coat and then sealed over top just to make sure that the paint wasn't going to rub off of the brass. These Hope designs, as of right now, I have 5 different colors with them. I do not have a rusted one though. I think that I need to do that after doing this piece because I personally love rusted hardware. So I picked out the color that was going to most closely match the original knobs up top, and then I just added a little bit of this rust color over top and then sprayed those to seal everything in as well. And the very last step here, I felt like these top drawers just looked a little bare. Initially, I was contemplating using the brass tags on all of the drawers, but I felt like that wasn't gonna look old enough. So I went with the brass tags on the bottom 6 drawers, and then I took my wood burner and burned in numbers 1 through 10 on every drawer on the top. I've had this wood burner for like 8 or 9 years and have never used it, and then just recently used it on a project, and then now I cannot get enough of it. So you're going to be seeing a lot more of this. And this is my favorite part of this whole thing, using my handy dandy finger measurement method. But hey, it's tried and true, and honestly, anything that has been used as like an old workbench is never perfect. So it just kind of adds to the like homemade, genuine vibe of this entire thing. All right, y'all, this is how it turned out. This is the final result. Again, it's not going to be for everybody, but you have to admit there's a lot of hard work that goes into making something look genuinely, purposefully old. This, to me, looks like it has been sitting around for a super long time, just getting rained on, and I'm pretty proud of it. I think it is the perfect marketing piece. I cannot get enough of my hardware, you guys. I love it. If you're interested in it, you can check it out on the website. Otherwise, I hope you guys enjoyed this. For those of you that love like genuine grungy apothecary pieces, this is probably one of my favorites. Thanks y'all so much for sticking around. Hope to see y'all in the next one.